When the house gets quiet, the mind begins to preach, and it is not the gospel. All day you held the pieces together, answered the emails, paid the bill that could be paid, put a meal on the table, kept a smile where perhaps there was no joy, and when darkness draws the curtains and the last light is shut, the pulpit is surrendered to the what if. What if the body breaks? What if the money will not be there next month? What if that conversation returns to accuse me? What if they leave? What if I have wasted my years? And the mind, unopposed, you see, rings the bell for its midnight service and demands that you attend. Now, I tell you at the outset, the crisis of night is not the appearance of a thought. It is our reaction to it. Faith and reaction go right together. The measure of our faith is not the sentence we recite at noon, but the non-reaction we hold at 2 a.m. when the courtroom opens in the skull and the prosecutor parades exhibits that have never existed in spirit. Be still and know that I am God. Do you hear? Not be still and fix it. Not be still and argue your case, but be still and know. If we had faith enough to be still, the sermon of the mind would end without a benediction. So let me be very plain about what we are not doing here, and you will forgive me because I love you enough to refuse a sweet poison. We are not going to give human advice. We are not going to analyze the case. We are not going to plan tomorrow at 2 a.m. because take no thought for the morrow. And that was not offered as poetry. Never enter the case humanly. Never permit yourself to be drawn to the side of wealth against lack or health against disease or yours against theirs. You are not dealing with sides. You are not dealing with persons. You are not even dealing with thoughts as powers. There is only one power, and it does not announce itself with panic. All right, you say? Then what is the one shift? Here it is, and it is simpler than the mind will allow. Stop answering the mental shouts. Don't react to the appearance. Turn within. Let the mind have its wind without granting it your sail. It is I. Be not afraid. That is not a sentence to hurl at the darkness. It is a presence to be recognized in silence. Nobody by taking thought can contact God. Nobody. God is not a thought, is not mind, is not a device to secure a better tomorrow. God is the I, that is the brooding stillness. And there must come, do you see this, a split second of silence in which the I announces itself. We begin tonight by recognizing the real dynamic at play. When the house gets quiet, the untrained attention runs out into the street to chase shadows. The work is not to chase better shadows. The work is to bring attention home and refuse reaction. Sit back from the scene. A thought appears. Do not grant it identity. Do not give it a name tag that says, my fear, my debt, my mistake. Let it pass without a reply. Our practice through these nights will be to cultivate that refusal so gently, so steadily, that the mind discovers it cannot draw us into litigation, and in the pause that remains we will find the living silence. There, and only there, is the end of the sermon of what if. There, we know not by argument but by presence that life is here. And in that knowing, the night ceases to be a crisis and becomes, once again, holy ground. Back to the point, and let us make it so plain. The mind cannot pretend not to hear. When the mind begins its shouting, you do not debate. You do not defend. You do not plan. You refuse it. Your audience, that is the one shift. The spiral lives on your replies. Starve it. A messenger knocks. You do not open the door. The message cannot be delivered. Be still and know that I am God. Be still first. Refuse the hearing, and the knowing follows. If you are tempted to ask, but should I not at least answer with a truth? Hear me. To answer at all is to accept the premise that the appearance has power and requires an answer. Thou couldst have no power at all against me, except it were given thee from above. Do you see that? If there is only one power, then anything demanding a midnight argument is without power, and the only way it pretends to power is through your attention. Now, non-reaction is not suppression. We are not fighting thoughts. We are not pushing them out or pulling affirmations in. We are not loving them, fearing them, or hating them. We neither fear, love, nor hate any appearance. We withdraw consent and interest. That is different from wrestling. Wrestling means you got in the ring and shook hands with an opponent you yourself advertised as dangerous. Non-reaction means you never entered the ring. You sat in the gallery and let the pageant pass, unclaimed. The clouds go by. You do not climb a ladder to rearrange them. The sea sends its foam to the shore. You do not argue the tide back with your broom. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. Not stand and strive. Not stand and calculate. Stand still. Why does answering strengthen the spiral? Because every answer says, I recognize you. I concede you possess a law. I admit you have authority to summon me. And the moment authority is conceded, fear, love, or hate attaches to it, and there you have the tether. The night will keep tugging because you left a rope tied from your heart to a picture on the wall of imagination. Cut the rope. How? Refuse to answer. Let the picture hang. It is not your wall. It is not even a wall. It is canvas in an empty theater after hours. All right? But what do? Really? At 2 a.m, you sit back inside yourself. You hear the first knock, health, money, guilt, future, and you say within, not as a weapon, but as a consecration, I will not enter this case humanly. I will be still. That is all. Not a sentence to end the battle, but a placing of your attention where God alone is. Nobody by taking thought can contact God. Nobody. God is not a thought, is not mind, is not a gadget to fix a Tuesday. God is. And there must come a split second, we'll do a silence, in which the I announces itself. Your non-reaction is the door you leave unlatched for that advent. Do not confuse quiet with apathy. Refusing to answer at night is fidelity to principle. When action is needed in the day, it will be given you, and it will come without fret, without heat, without the smell of smoke. But at night, when the prosecutor thinks the judge is gone, you are the court officer who turns out the light and locks the hall. Case dismissed without hearing, you see, not for lack of compassion, but for lack of jurisdiction. Take no thought for the morrow. If tomorrow has a form in the divine order, it will unfold to the divine mind in you. It does not require your midnight sketches. So let us put it into practice now and henceforth. The mind begins. Do not debate. Do not defend. Do not plan. Let the wind blow and keep your sail furled. If a phrase is needed as a staff for the moment, take this and hold it lightly. I will not enter this case humanly. I will be still. Then wait not for an answer to the picture, but for the presence that renders the picture a non-event. In that refusal, the spiral snaps. In that hush, you learn the only lesson the night was ever permitted to teach. Appearances have no authority where the eye of God is realized. Now, let me take you where you already know you go. When the covers rise under your breath and the clock salts the dark with minutes, the courtroom. At 2 in the morning, the mind convenes its trial. The prosecutor is the mind. The defense attorney is the mind. The surprise witness also the mind. It brings in exhibits from last year and predictions from next month. It cross-examines your childhood. And all the while, you sit at the bench, weary and flattered, imagining yourself the judge. You gavel the session open and call for order. You request more evidence. You rehearse your testimony. You imagine the verdict. And when at last exhaustion descends like a robe upon your shoulders, you pronounce something called truth, not because it is truth, but because you are tired of standing. Judge not, that ye be not judged. Do you see? The very act of taking the bench binds you to the judgment. Here is the discipline, and it will save your life. Never enter the case humanly. Recuse yourself. Turn out the lights in that hall. Do not diagnose yourself. Body, pocketbook, reputation. Do not forecast what will follow if you fail to sleep, if you speak, if you do not speak. Do not rehearse conversations to prosecute or to excuse. Do not edit a letter that has not been written. Do not retry a meeting that is over. Do not weigh the jury of imagined faces. Resist not evil, not because there is virtue in passivity, but because the only evil there was in the room was the belief that appearances possess power. When you resist, you join the case. When you do not resist, you decline the jurisdiction. Do you know how human advice sneaks in after dark? It puts on a concerned voice and begins counting scenarios. If I do this, then that. If I call them, they'll say. If I sell this, I can buy that. It performs examinations, embed symptom searches, pulse checks, keyword diagnoses. It makes vows. Tomorrow I will be flawless. I will never say that again. I will do 3 hours of this and 10 of that. And it bargains with God for outcomes, as if God were a clerk who stamps approvals. Give me sleep and I will give you zeal. Fix this body and I will attend every service. Let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay. For all that embroidery, you see, is fear in a religious hat. All right? What then is your business at 2 in the morning? Principle, not personalities. God contact, not case management. You do not defend the self. Christ is the only identity. You do not choose a side. There are no sides in one. You do not petition a power. God is not a power set over against another power. God is. Nobody by taking thought can touch that. Nobody. Therefore, your entire office in the night is to withdraw reaction and turn within, to abide until the presence renders the docket blank. Peace, be still. Not a command hurled at the storm, but the voice that speaks within the one who is not in the boat at all. Say within, gently, as if laying your keys on the table, I will not enter this case humanly. I will be still. Then hold to it as a consecration, not as a spell. Let the prosecutor rant. Let the defense compose its eloquence. Let predictions scroll like stock tickers across the bottom of the mind. You will not preside. The judge has left the bench. The court has no standing, where principle is the only law acknowledged. Agree with thine adversary quickly, not by conceding error, but by declining debate. Yes, thought you have spoken, and now I am silent. In that holy refusal, the air changes. It may be a split second, no more, but it is enough. The mind notices that its theater is empty. The stenographer, your heart rate, puts down the keys. The bailiff, your breath stops pacing and stands at ease. And the case, which never had law, dissolves into the stillness from which it seemed to rise. Never enter the case humanly. Leave that 2 a.m. courtroom. Let it echo and cool. Your freedom begins not with a better argument, but with no argument at all. And in the no argument, the I that is God quietly announces itself. Then, without your help, the night becomes merciful again. Now, while we are about this business of leaving the courtroom, let me tell you why the prosecutor sounded so certain that it could drag you back to the bench. Because the voice in the night often isn't your voice at all. It is the weather of universal belief passing through human consciousness. Fear of the future, fear of disease, fear of abandonment. These are not private inventions. They are like gusts that move across the world mind, and they seek any chink to rattle a window. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, says the scripture, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Not your neighbor, not your biology, not your yesterday impersonal suggestion. You see, the prince of the power of the air, and the air thickens at night. Do not misunderstand that it is universal does not excuse us from practice, but it does remove the shame. If you believed this was your private defect, your personal failure of character or faith, you strapped a weight to your ankles before you even stood up. No, this has nothing to do with you as a person. This is a universal belief presenting itself. Say that within, quietly, without heat, and feel the chords snap. When the appearance is re-identified as impersonal, the urgency that demanded your midnight pact has no one to sign with. You do not owe an answer to a wind. Now, why does the night amplify these gusts? Because fatigue lowers the noisy interference that kept you distracted all day, and the very quiet you have begged for becomes the hall in which a whisper echoes like prophecy. The silence of the house mints the suggestion as revelation. A flicker in the body, a pulse you ignored at noon, becomes evidence now, a witness for the prosecution. A rustle in the account book becomes a verdict. The mind stitches a story out of ordinary sensations and wraps it round you with your name on the lining. But listen, the body is not a notary, and sensation is not a seal. Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. Righteous judgment begins with this: appearances have no law. Universal beliefs have no authority. There is only one power. At such an hour, when the pulse insists and the thought hisses, you are to sit back and identify the source. Not this person, not my history, not my special sin. Universal belief in lack, in contagion, in loneliness, advertising for attention. The world has believed in drafts causing colds, in economies that must fail, in love that abandons, and so the unguarded mind at night feels not its own fear, but the world's. All right, let it pass. If you don't put your name on the parcel, the courier takes it away in the morning. Let me give you your practice. As a simple, steady word you can hold like the rail in a dark stairwell. This has nothing to do with me as a person. This is a universal belief presenting itself. I give it no law, no power, no timeline. Then do not add a paragraph to it. Do not preach to it. Do not bargain. Agree with thine adversary quickly, which is to say, concede its right to speak as whether, and then be silent. The hush is your consent to leave it impersonal. And in that impersonalization, the hook cannot find a place to set. If you are tempted to protest, but it feels so real, of course it does. The universal is vast, and when it passes through a single point of awareness, the single point feels surrounded. Yet remember, be not conformed to this world. but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. The renewing is this reclassification of the whole spectacle, universal belief, without law, without person, without power. Leave personalities out, yours most of all. Principle alone governs, and as you hold that, not strenuously but faithfully, the atmosphere clears. A split second will do. The gale that seemed to blow inside you is discovered to have been only air, and the I that is God, never moved, never stormed, remains the quiet in which you rest. Back to the matter of faith, and let us define it so cleanly. There is no wiggle left in the mind to pretend. Faith is shown by your reaction, and to the degree that you do not react to the appearance, to that degree you are in faith. Do you see that? Not the number of verses you can recite, not the emotion you feel in a hymn. The measure is the quiet with which you face a picture that announces itself as power. Panic is not a sin. I do not condemn you for the jolt in the belly. Panic is a signal, and that alone. It tells you that for a moment you have conceded authority to the appearance. All right? When you see the red light, you do not smash the dashboard. You take your foot off the accelerator. When you feel panic, take your hand off the case. Now, because we have not known this middle path, we have practiced two equal errors in the night. One is fear and dramatization. We build a theater of catastrophe out of a whisper. A twinge becomes a verdict. A delay becomes a prophecy. The darkness edits a screenplay out of a single sensation and demands your starring role. The other is mental coercion. We begin to hurl truths like stones at the picture we repeat. We chant. We argue with the thought until the bed shakes and the clock grows cruel. Both are reactions, and both concede power. One crowns the appearance by fearing it. The other crowns the appearance by announcing that it must be defeated. No man can serve two masters. In fear, you serve the appearance with trembling. In positive combat, you serve the appearance by taking it seriously as an opponent. Either way, you have left the middle path. The middle path, neither resisting nor indulging, neither fear, love, nor hate any appearance. Stand still and refuse jurisdiction. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. Not stand and fight. Not stand and collapse. Stand still. Righteous judgment is the quiet recognition that appearances are not law and possess no power from above. Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. When a picture rises, you do not strike it nor kiss it. You do not write a speech against it. You do not seek a bargain with it. You let it be what it is, an unbacked claim, and you retire within to that center where be still and know that I am God is not a sentence but a state. Let me put it in the exact scene where you will use it. You are in bed, and there is a sensation in the chest. Not pain exactly, a pressure, a flutter. At noon, you might not notice it. At 2 a.m., it becomes a headline. The mind runs. Heart, hospital, helplessness. It drags in an uncle's story, a neighbor's funeral, a memory of a staircase climbed too fast. You can feel the script being stapled to your name. Now, right there, right at the first stapler's click, faith shows itself not by a speech, but by non-reaction. Say within, gently, this is an appearance without law. I grant it no power, no timeline, no story. Then do not add a single syllable. Let not your heart be troubled. Let it not be troubled by fear, and let it not be troubled by frantic truth-throwing. Let it be untroubled by the middle path. Rest. Breathe. without agenda. Withdraw your consent to be the author of a drama and wait the split second will do in which the I announces itself as the only fact. If in that moment the mind baits you, shall I call someone? Shall I test? Shall I vow fitness tomorrow? Notice the fishing line and drop it. Your business in the night is not management. It is recognition. Recognition of what? That there is only one power, that appearances have no authority, that we walk by faith, not by sight and sight, at 2 a.m. means the internal slideshow of suggestion. Faith refuses to let a sensation become a biography. Faith refuses to let a thought become a judge. Faith is the non-reaction that holds the place for God. And in holding that place without bargaining for a result, it renders the appearance non-event. All right. Will there be times when the sensation returns, when the thought tries again? Of course. Universal belief is weather. It circles the globe. But you, established in the middle path, do not set up windmills at every gust. You remain unreactive, not apathetic, not valiant, unreactive. This is not passivity. This is fidelity to principle. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. That is the scripture, and it is our practice. Hold your peace, not as a tactic to obtain a better tomorrow, not as a pressure to force silence, but because in that peace the only law present is the I that is God. And when the I is recognized, a flutter is what it always was, a ripple in a dream. And you, awake, do not drown in a ripple. You rest. You see, you let the night pass without your signature on its script. Now here is the turn that will feel like a rug pulled and a flaw discovered under it. Do not turn to God for anything. Do you hear? Not for sleep, not for a quiet stomach, not for a softened boss, not for tomorrow's check to clear. Don't use prayer as a lever to pry open outcomes. That is why the nights have been so long. You have taken God as a device, and God is not a device. God isn't mind. God isn't even soul. Nobody knows what God is. And if nobody knows, then nobody by taking thought can reach God with arguments, with bargains, with the polite bribes we call vows. Take no thought for the morrow, not a suggestion for cheerful people, an instruction for those who would know God rather than manage Thursday. You see, the hidden habit after dark is this. We begin to pray in order to stop fear, to get sleep, to fix the body, and then we set up a little laboratory on the pillow, and we measure the result minute by minute. Has the pulse slowed? Has the thought receded? Do I feel drowsy yet? And if the answer is no, we wind the machine tighter. We fetch more verses. We begin to pay by the stanza for a service we imagine can be purchased. That is not prayer. That is fear investments. When ye pray, use not vain repetitions as the heathen do, for they think that they shall be heard for their much speaking. Do you see the trap? We are not heard for speaking at all. We are heard only because in silence the eye hears itself. So what is prayer in the night? Not change this, not make that. Seek ye first the kingdom of God. Seek God contact, not tomorrow management. Say within, without project and without clock, reveal thyself. Not reveal an answer, reveal thyself. Speak, Lord, for thy servant heareth. That is different from speaking at the Lord. The one is noise, seeking control. The other is listening, granting consent. In that consent, there must come just a split second. We'll do a hush, a felt presence, not made of sentence or sigh. And in that presence, I, if I be lifted up, will draw all men, all conditions, all appearances unto me. The solution is not in the picture changing. The solution is the presence realized. Then what needs to change will change. And what never had law falls of itself. Now, I know the mind will say, but is it wrong to want sleep? Is it wrong to wish the body ease? No, not wrong, human. Only don't take that human wanting into the sanctuary and call it prayer. Leave your shoes at the door. Come without a list. Thy will be done. Not thy will be done quickly, or in this manner, or before the alarm goes off. Thy will be done. When you are tempted to test whether it is working, return to the one altar. Reveal thyself. Let the watch tick as it pleases. Let the body have its weather. You are not negotiating with appearances. You are consenting to God. And do not ask how God will appear. Nobody knows what God is, and so you cannot predict the form of the appearing. It may be a softening breath. It may be a weight lifted from the brow. It may be no sensation at all, but a simple non-need that dawns like morning. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. Confidence in what? Not in an outcome, not in a plan, but in the I that is God, the only law present. When the presence is realized, you discover that the night never asked for management, it asked for worship. You discover that the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, does not mean the sheep got all their preferences. It means want ended in the nearness of the shepherd. So tonight, refuse the lever, refuse the bargains, refuse the sacred stopwatch. Enter without an agenda and remain until the quality of stillness, however brief, has had its say. Seek God, not goods. In that iconoclast, turn the tyranny of tomorrow loses its tongue, and you, resting where there is only I, find that the need was never outside and never future. It was this: to know God, not about God. To be silent and to let God have its perfect work. Now, since you see that prayer is not a lever for outcomes, but a consent to presence, let us be very practical, because at bedtime, the mind will ask, all right, how exactly? Take this as your ladder, 4 rungs only, and you climb them without hurry, without judgment, without looking down to measure the floor. First, notice. The very instant the mind begins to forecast, if this, then that. If tomorrow, then never label it suggestion. Not my thought, not my character, not my private doom suggestion. Give it no heat. Do not bless it. Do not curse it. Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. Righteous judgment at this rung is the cool reclassification, a universal belief passing through, without person, without law. Agree with thine adversary quickly by conceding only this: you have spoken, and I am not your audience. Second, withdraw reaction. This is the hinge. Stop the inner conversation. No more checking the pulse. No more craning to see the clock. No more rehearsing a speech or proving a truth against the wind. Lay down the gavel and close the courtroom. Resist not evil, because resistance is an appointment you need not keep. Neither fear, love, nor hate any appearance. You do not argue with a radio. You turn the knob. In the same way, turn your attention away from answering. If you must use a word to break the habit, use this and let it go. I will not enter this case humanly. Then keep your seat. No debating, no proving, no bargains. Third, turn within, not upward pleading within. Be still and know that I am God. Become a listener. Let's speak, Lord, for thy servant heareth. Be your posture, not your performance. Relax the need to understand what you are listening to. Nobody, by taking thought, can contact God. You cannot think your way through this door. Let your hands, your jaw, your belly soften. Let the breath come and go without supervision. You are not watching for signs. You are consenting to presence. If a verse rises, hold it as you would hold a lamp, not a sword. And then let even the lamp dim before the dawn. Fourth, wait for the click. There must come just a split second. We'll do a sense of silence that is not made by you but allowed by you. Do not manufacture it. Do not time it. You cannot make silence. You can only cease producing noise. Sometimes it feels like a small widening in the chest. Sometimes like the end of an argument you forgot you were having. Sometimes like nothing at all but a gentle non-need where the hurry used to be. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. Hold it not as a tactic, but as truth. In that instant, the spiral loses its tongue, because you have withdrawn the court, the jury, and the verdict. Now, what is success on this ladder? Not necessarily sleep on schedule, not necessarily a warm wave or a holy shiver. Success is the end of compulsion, the loosening of the rope that tied you to the picture. Success is that you no longer have to answer the mind. You may still be awake, but you are not in the case. You are not pacing the cell. Take no thought for the morrow. And if thought returns, you do not measure your failure. You place your foot again on rung one, notice, then withdraw, then turn within, then wait. Seek ye first the kingdom, the God contact, the split second of stillness, and all these things are added as they are added. Let the watch tick. Let the night be the sanctuary where you practice non-reaction. And let God have its perfect work. When the click is come, even for a breath, the bed is no longer a command center. It is an altar. And in time, divine time, the altar becomes your rest. All right, let us do it now. 3 quiet minutes, nothing strenuous, nothing to obtain. Lie as you are, eyes closed, hands easy, jaw soft. Let the tongue rest. Let the belly be unpoliced. You are not here to achieve peace. You are here to stop answering noise. Be still and know that I am God. Not be still and get. Be still and know. Begin with this, as if you were laying your tools down one by one. I will not enter this case humanly. I do not need to know. I am willing to be still. Let the mind speak if it wishes. Give it permission to shout, to catalog, to replay, to predict. You are not the usher. You do not have to seat these thoughts. Hear them as you would hear a radio in a room down the hall. Words, tones, opinions heard, not obeyed. Agree with thine adversary quickly, not by surrendering your peace to it, but by granting it only this much. Yes, you are noise, and I do not reply. No defense, no prosecution, no verdict. The court is closed. The judge has left the bench. Now, turn within, not outward to a future, within to presence. Say gently, without effort and without timetable, in thy silence, thou art here. Then listen. Do not try to locate God with thought. Nobody by taking thought can contact God. Listen as a lake listens. No hands on the water, no nets, no bait. Speak, Lord, for thy servant heareth. If a verse rises, let it float like a lamp and then grow dim of its own accord. If a memory rises, let it pass as weather. Neither fear, love, nor hate any appearance. Your consent is to silence, not to sentences. If the body calls your attention, an ache, a flutter, a pressure, do not label it. Do not schedule it. Do not fold it into a story. Judge not according to the appearance. Let it be a ripple touching the shore of your awareness, and let it subside without a report. Breathe, uncoached. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. Your work is the holding, not clenching, not bracing, holding as one holds a quiet room. You do not fill it. You refrain from filling it. Return simply to your consecration. I will not enter this case humanly. I do not need to know. I am willing to be still. Feel how each sentence removes a hook. The first releases the courtroom. The second releases the compulsion to manage. The third opens the door to presence. In thy silence, thou art here. Let there be a gap, just a breath's width, where you do not produce. There must come, and often it is only this long. A click, not fireworks, not trance, a small end of argument in the heart. Rest there without congratulation, without measuring whether it is working. Take no thought for the morrow. Thought is tomorrow's tongue. Silence is God's. If a thought storms back, if the radio blares, do not count it as loss. You are not monitoring a project. You are keeping a vigil. Repeat your consecration, not as a trick to tame the mind, but as worship. I will not enter this case humanly. I do not need to know. I am willing to be still. And again, in thy silence, thou art here. Then listen. Do this without hurry, without scolding, without result hunting. A few minutes of such non-reaction and inward listening interrupts the habit pattern. It breaks the reflex of answering the mind and opens the door through which silence enters of itself. Now let the minutes be whatever they are. Let the night be the sanctuary, not the shop. If sleep comes, let it come. If it does not, remain in the altar of non-reaction. The vigil itself is the prayer, and the fasting from mental feeding. Prayer as quiet consent. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. Confidence in what? In the I that is here, needing no defense, desiring no verdict. Hold your peace and let God have its perfect work. Now, because you have tasted even a breath width of that click, the mind will try a new strategy. And I want you to see it so clearly you won't be fooled. It will say, I did it last night and I still woke up. I stilled myself and the thoughts still came back. It didn't work. There is the hook that is judging your demonstration night by night. And it is nothing but the courtroom in a new robe. The case is not the picture anymore. The case is your progress report. Do you see how cunning that is? The kingdom of God cometh not with observation. You cannot stand at the orchard gate with a clipboard and bring fruit to ripeness by counting the blossoms. Maturation is the law by which spirit translates itself into form. First the blade, then the ear, after that the full corn in the ear. You do not tug at the shoots to hasten them. You let the life within have its way. Let patience have her perfect work, not an impatient work. not a hurried work, perfect, which is to say, whole, rounded, divine. The practice we are about is cumulative, not theatrical. It is not a stage effect that cues on your whisper and drops a curtain on your desire. Every time you refuse to answer the mind, a groove is softened. Every time you turn within without an agenda, a path is cleared. Every time you wait for the split second of silence, you fertilize the ground. You may not notice anything but less compulsion to reply. And that, my dear, is the crop in its first light. Do not dig it up to examine its roots. Consider Saul of Tarsus, struck by a light that left him blind to all he had been certain of. That flash was not the end. It was the beginning of a long inward season. By the record, he went off years before he brought forth what we know as Paul. 9 years, I have said, before he went out. Do you think for a minute he understood his ministry on the second evening? No. The inner reorientation precedes the outward calm. The mind that would measure sleep by the hour and declare success or failure by dawn is the same mind that once measured righteousness by letters of the law. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Renewing is not a stunt. It is slow bread rising under the cloth of patience. So replace the monitoring with trust. Your work is fidelity to non-reaction and inward listening, not keeping a sleep chart at 3 a.m. A student wrote, I kept the vigil 3 nights and still woke twice. I suppose I'm losing ground. No, you are standing your ground for the first time. Be not weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap, if we faint not. Do not faint into the old habit of measuring. Stand in the new habit of refusing to answer even the urge to grade yourself. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. Waiting is not languishing. It is consenting to divine pace. It is the Sabbath of your attention, from which good rises as it must and when it must. Here is your discipline tonight and every night until the new normal is born without your help. Do not look at your demonstration night by night. Let maturity bring to light. If you wake, do not check the clock for a verdict. Do not touch the body for a report. Do not interrogate your heart for progress. Return to the rail. I will not enter this case humanly. I do not need to know. I am willing to be still. Then listen. If silence comes, bow. If it tarries, bow. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. Hold it when the room is quiet, and hold it when the thoughts parade. The holding is your faith, and faith, remember, is known by non-reaction. In time, divine time, the need to check dissolves, not because you have secured all your tomorrows, but because you have ceased to live in them. The yoke of monitoring is broken, and the night becomes again what God made it to be, a sanctuary. Leave results to God. Leave timing to God. Leave even your sense of progress to God. Let God have its perfect work, and let the fruit ripen while you are not looking. Then, one evening, without ceremony, you will discover that the courtroom is shuttered. The judge has indeed left the bench, and the only sound in the house is the stillness that has learned to stay. When the mind discovers that you have stopped monitoring, it will attempt a last flourish, and it is always theatrical. It demands a verdict. It forces a binary, a gavel rap, in the dark. Either you solve this now or disaster comes. Either you quiet this thought or the night is lost. Either you stop the symptom or it will name you by morning. Do you see the trick? It invents 2 sides and then drafts you to argue one of them. And the moment you take a side, even the side that looks calm and rational, you are in the case. Never enter the case humanly. Never. not even as the reasonable attorney. No man can serve two masters. If you serve the appearance by fighting it or the appearance by fearing it, you have let the appearance be master. Refuse sides, refuse outcomes, choose principle. Principle over personalities. That is not only for labor disputes and marriages. It is for the inner war as well. The frightened self begins to plead. The rational self begins to lecture. Soon you have a courtroom in which you play both prosecutor and defense. That is personalities at work, wearing your face. You are not the frightened self, and you are not the rational self. Christ is the only identity. Christ is all and in all. Do you see what that does to the trial? It removes the plaintiff and the defendant in one breath. When the mind says, which will you be, the crier or the fixer? You answer, neither. I am not in this suit. Who made me a judge or a divider over you? Let that be your inner posture. You are not a judge over appearances or a divider of outcomes. You are a transparency for principle, a student wrote. At 2:00, the ultimatum came. Either get to sleep now or you'll fail at dawn. I began to bargain with God for 20 minutes. There is the old religion in new clothes, bargaining for trophies. Now or else. Fast or else. This is what we lay down. You do not turn to God for surrender terms. You turn within for God contact. Whether sleep drifts in at 10 after or not until the birds warm their throats has nothing to do with your fidelity. Take no thought for the morrow. Do not take thought for the next hour either. Detach from outcomes. Let the symptom fade now or later. Let the clock do as it pleases. Your concern is not winning rounds. Your concern is the presence realized. I and my Father are one. In that oneness, who is left to defeat and what is there to win? When the binary is thrust upon you, now or never, fix it or fail. Step back into the middle path. Neither fear, love, nor hate any appearance. You do not fear the thought. You do not love the quick victory. You do not hate the lingering sensation. You let all three be handled by grace, not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord. Not by the might of the rational self, not by the power of the frightened self's drama, but by Spirit, the quiet law that requires no witness and accepts no deadlines. Put up thy sword into the sheath. My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, then would my servants fight. If you find yourself fighting inwardly, you are attempting to bring forth a worldly kingdom, a managed tomorrow under spiritual names. Stop. Return to principle. Principle says there is one power. Principle says appearances have no law. Principle says Christ is the identity present. And where Christ is recognized, condemnation has no bench to sit upon. There is therefore now no condemnation to them which are in Christ Jesus. No condemnation by the clock. No condemnation by the body's report. No condemnation by the mind's verdict. So when anxiety hammers, decide, you answer. I have decided, not for this side or that side, but for principle. And how do you decide? By non-reaction. You refuse the urgency that requires you to rule. You rest in the hush that has already ruled. Be still and know that I am God. All right. Will the mind accuse you then of apathy? Of course. It will say, if you don't care, you will suffer. You are not practicing not caring. You are practicing not answering. There is a difference. You are withdrawing from personalities to stand in principle. Principle does not abandon, principle governs. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. Hold it. Refuse sides. Refuse outcomes. Choose principle. And in that choice, unexcited and unopposed, the binary dissolves. Night anxiety collapses because the trial was fed only by your consent to judge. With judgment withdrawn, with identity returned to Christ, and care returned to grace, the house grows quiet with something deeper than sleep, the recognition that there is only I, and where I am. Verdicts are not rendered, life is. All right? Sometimes the pattern does not bow to a few minutes of quiet. Sometimes it returns at 1, at 2, at 4. The same dread rehearse, the same body's chorus, the same old paperwork sliding back under the door as if signed by fate. Recurring insomnia, recurring panic, recurring dread. You have spoken a truth or two, you have withdrawn for a breath, and still the tide keeps licking the steps. Now do not take that as evidence of a power. Do not make a god of stubbornness. This has nothing to do with you personally. This is a universal belief taking its nightly tour. Treat it as such and bring to bear the capstone lever we have kept in reserve. This kind goeth not out but by prayer and fasting. You see, prayer and fasting here have nothing to do with making God move. God is not moved. God isn't mind. God isn't even soul. Nobody knows what God is. But we know this. Nobody, by taking thought, can contact God. And nothing nourishes the spiral but thought. Fasting, then, is not from bread. It is from feeding the mind what it craves. No problem solving, no scrolling in the blue light, no symptom checking, no emotional rehearsal of conversations. And listen, no brandishing of spiritual statements as weapons. When you lift a verse to strike a fear, you are in the same combat, only with gilded gloves. Lay down both fists. When ye fast, be not as the hypocrites, but thou, when thou fastest, anoint thine head and wash thy face. Make it quiet, make it ordinary. Withdraw nourishment without ceremony. And prayer, not petitions, not bargains, not timed recitations. Prayer is presence. Enter into thy closet and shut thy door. Pray to thy Father which is in secret. Shut the door on every channel that broadcasts the case. Abide. Stay as a listener without aim until the compulsion to reply weakens. If it takes 5 minutes, 5 minutes. If it takes 50, 50. You are not proving stamina to God. You are starving a reflex that has lived on your attention for years. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. Waiting is the practice. Renewal is the fruit. How does this look at 2 a.m? First, you declare a fast, not to the world, not to the mind as a threat, simply to yourself as obedience. For this watch I will not feed the spiral. No phone, no clock checking, no inventory of the body, no drafting of emails in the head, no rehearsed prayers offered as payment. Second, you take your place and refuse the bench. I will not enter this case humanly. Then you listen. No fishing for a sign, no pushing for a hush listen. If a thought insists, let it pass unfed. If a sensation flares, let it be weather without forecast. Neither fear, love, nor hate any appearance. When a holy sentence rises, hold it as a lamp, and then let even the lamp grow dim, because the presence that answers you is not in syllables, but in itself. There must come, even if later than you wish, a split second of unmanufactured stillness. Wait, stand still, and see the salvation of the Lord. Stand still long enough to see, not to make. Now, because I know the mind, let me name your true goal so you cannot miss it. Not perfection, not unbroken sleep by Thursday. The goal in a fast is this: shorter spirals, quicker returns, deeper trust. Shorter spirals, because you are no longer adding fuel. Quicker returns, because the path within is being worn smooth. Deeper trust, because outcomes cease to be your altar. Do not monitor this with a graph. Recognize it by a gentling of the grip you once kept on tomorrow. First the blade, then the ear. After that, the full corn in the ear. Your non-reaction is the soil. Your fasting is the weeding. Your prayer is the sun on the field. If a night passes and the pattern thrums anyway, you have not failed. You have fasted. You have deprived the habit of its meal, and already it is thinner than it was. Return again the next watch. Make the abstention more radical if need be. Fast also from remembering how bad it was last time, from predicting how tired you will be in the morning, from composing a testimony you hope to give once it is over. All that is feeding. Refuse it. Choose principle. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. Hold it lovingly, stubbornly, without drama. In this capstone: obedience, prayer as presence, fasting as withdrawal. The intractable shows itself for what it always was, an appearance asking for your reaction. You do not grant it. You abide until the hush returns. And in that hush there is no case to try and no night to endure. Only I and where I am rest. Now we close, not with a flourish, but with a consecration. You have seen the line that runs through every watch. The night suggests you do not react. The mind opens a courtroom. You do not enter the case humanly. You turn within. You wait for the unsponsored hush. You refuse to judge by clocks, by symptoms, by next morning verdicts. Do you see that? That is the thread on which every bead of practice has been strung, and it holds. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength, not in the quick silencing of a symptom, not in the management of tomorrow, but in the refusal to feed the picture and the willingness to be still until presence declares itself without your prompting. Let the night therefore be restored to what it was given to be, a sanctuary, not a battlefield. The night cometh when no man can work. Take it as the cue to cease mental work, to stop the labor of fixing and forecasting. In the world's quiet, the soul learns the only remedy that is remedy: contact with God beyond all taking of thought. Nobody by taking thought can enter that door, but the door opens, and it opens in silence, sometimes only a split second wide, yet enough for a universe to enter. I lay me down and sleep, for thou, Lord, only makest me dwell in safety. Safety is not manufactured by argument. It is realized when the argument is dismissed for lack of jurisdiction. Carry with you then a practice so compact it will fit between breaths. One sentence and one pause. I will be still. Say it once as you set your head on the pillow or as you wake to a rustle in the mind. Not a magic charm, not a lever, a consent. I will be still. Then the pause. Do not fill it. Do not repeat the sentence to club away the thoughts. Do not ask how long the pause should last. You will be tempted to measure it, to praise it, to complain of it. Refuse all that. The sentence is the turning. The pause is the temple. Some nights the temple feels wide and fragrant. Some nights it is only a breath's width. But the holiness is not in size. It is in the refusal to answer the world and the willingness to listen for what is not in words. If the mind resumes its clamor, do not fight to hold the pause as if it were a quarry that might escape. Speak the sentence once more softly, without force. I will be still and let the pause return of its own kind. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. Holding your peace is not a clench. It is the open hand that refuses to grasp the gavel. All right. Some nights you will sleep as a child. Some nights you will rest awake in God. And both are holy. Do not look at your demonstration night by night. Let maturity bring to light. The oak does not count its rings by lantern. It grows in the dark because life is in it. Now a word of blessing, and it is not pressure, it is companionship. You are not alone in this discipline. Lo, I am with you always. The same eye that led a people by a pillar of cloud by day and fire by night leads you in a hush no flame can picture. He giveth his beloved sleep, and when sleep delays, he gives his beloved himself, and that is rest before sleep and beneath it and after it. Leave outcomes, leave timetables, leave even your desire to testify about success. Let God have its perfect work. Christ is the only identity here. Not a frightened self, not a clever self. Christ, present, sufficient, unhurried. So tonight, and as many nights as are given, make a sanctuary of your bed. Lay down the gavel. Refuse the case. Turn within. Say only, I will be still, and then keep the pause as one keeps a lamp lit in a quiet room. Not to search, but to welcome. In time, divine time, the pause will come without your asking. The silence will begin to find you first, and you will discover that your refuge has become habitual, not by strain, but by grace recognized. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and let the knowing come as it comes. Good night, dear one. Rest in the eye that rests you.